Brandon, why don't you just do a little background on you and your market centers and stuff like that? Why don't we start with that?
Yes, absolutely. So, good afternoon, everybody. Good to see you here on Zoom. So, yeah, Brandon Green. I'm in Washington, D.C., and I've been here since 1999 and got into the business in 2001. And it's been a heck of a ride all these last several years. And started as an individual agent, just selling houses by myself, and then started to grow a team, got introduced to Keller Williams, and was blown away by this idea that you could actually have other people around you, and that was exciting. And started to build a sales enterprise. And then in 2006, we launched our first market center in Washington, D.C., as the first Keller Williams franchise in the area. And fast forward to today, we have 7 market centers and 1 additional business center. And we've been fortunate too along the way to launch a lot of other businesses and as part of the process. We've got a couple title ventures, home staging and interior design, and some other hospitality, some technology, coaching, etc. So I consider myself an entrepreneur, and proud about what we built. Though I'll tell you, with this whole COVID-19 thing, it's also been super scary and also opportunistic all at the same time. So I'm excited today to just sort of talk about what we've been doing in our businesses and offer as much perspective and as assistance as I can.
Awesome. Just tell us really quick on what's the market centers look like. How many market centers now, and how many agents in that area?
So we have 7 market centers between DC, Maryland, and Virginia, and 1 additional business center. And across the platform, that's about 1,300 real estate agents. The oldest one was the first one in 2006, right in Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. And the newest one was an acquisition that we did in Stafford, Virginia. So the size range of those, our biggest one is about 300 and our smallest one is about 100. And so it's interesting, we've got the early phase ones, sort of in the middle, and then we've got some of the more institutional market centers, if you will, here in DC from 2006.
Great. That's awesome. And you and I know each other from working as agents and masterminding together on the agent business. And so we're going to focus on that a little bit today, but
great.
Let's just kind of kick off. Like, what are some of the most important things that our agents should be doing right now regarding their finances? And it can be anything from the business side to the personal side, but if you're going to advise them and talk to them about what to do with their money and their business right now, like, what do you do if you've got, if you spend a lot of money on Zillow, should you cut it back? Where should you be spending your money? But let's start now. Like, what are the most important immediate strategies that you would recommend?
Yeah, so the way I'm thinking about it and what I'm actually doing is I'm saying we're really in stage 1 of this crisis, which is about liquidity, meaning maximize your ability to get cash, to pull in revenue by closing anything you can, and reducing or postponing or putting off as many expenses as you possibly can. So, to give you some specific examples in that, I'm sure everybody's heard of now these PPP, EIDL, ABC 123 programs out there. There's a lot of stuff going on. And if you haven't already, every independent contractor, sole proprietor, agent needs to be applying for those. We think that will be replenished this week. More funds will be available. So anything you can do to access any sort of government help right now is important. This is not the time to say, oh, no, like apply for everything, because getting as much cash as you need to roll this out as long as possible is critical. So, any settlements that can be pushed up, anything you can do to maximize your cash position. For a lot of people, that means putting off expenses or cutting expenses. So hopefully by now you've already gone through and done the obvious expense reductions. I would now encourage you to look at some of the more challenging expense reductions, which are usually contractual relationships you have with Zillow or other things, and ask yourself some real serious questions, which is, in the next 30 days, which is about as far in the future as we realistically can see, am I going to get a return on that? If the answer is clearly no, then some of that stuff you need to just postpone into the future and not pay it. I mean, the name of the game in Q2 is to get through it so that you can take advantage of the opportunities that will emerge on the back end of this. So, everything is up for grabs in my view, in terms of what you can or should be paying and the time sequence, and everything is negotiable too. So, get that monthly nut down to, as close to zero as you can, because it's about sustaining for the long haul in an unusually severe situation of compressed revenue.
So when you say the contractual obligations, what do we do if we've got a contract with Zillow or we've got a contract with different places? What do we do with that?
Well, a lot of what we've done is we've just stopped paying, and we've said, all right, and let me do an asterisk. We've stopped paying in communication. So we've said, okay, we're not going to pay you this month, and this is what our plan is, or we're going to pay you 5% or 10%. And a lot of people, some of this stuff is reoccurring on your credit cards, which means you've got to actually call your credit card company, identify that expense, and make sure that's a charge item that's rejected. Or if it's an automatic withdrawal from your bank account, you actually have to take that action. Now, if you're worried, as one would be, about those contractual obligations, what I would say to you is you've got to renegotiate that on the back end of this. And in my experience, every vendor we've had, every bill we've had for the most part has been incredibly flexible and has been willing to work with us. Because if you think about it from their perspective, they want to keep you as a customer. And if that means that your subscription is suspended for a couple months and you're coming back, that's really the long game goal. So Matt, I would say everything is up for grabs in terms of stopping to pay things, because it's really, this is the early stage of the crisis mode in terms of maximizing your ability to sustain through this period of time.
Yeah, so what if you're not feeling a pinch yet, right? So you've had a couple of closings this month because they were in the pipeline from January and February, and
Yep.
the moment you're like, well, I've got the cash and I can pay my bills.
I love you. Thank you for bringing that up, because I think a lot of agents are at that point where they had a really good pipeline that developed in the early part of Q1, and they're closing stuff out and they're seeing some cash. What I would say is, well, how is the front end of your pipeline now? Because what is the restrictions we're seeing in Pennsylvania and other places, that's going to show up in your cash flow 30 to 60 days from now. So you should be acting now as if your cash flow is going to be the most severe projection you can imagine. Now, hopefully we're going to do better than that, right? And there are opportunities for that, but I want you to plan for the worst. And this is hard for me, to be honest. Like, I don't sit in the whole worst case scenario planning mode very often, but this is really serious in that we've got to, even if you've got a good pipeline right now, imagine that it's going to go to zero, and what do you need to do to prepare for that? And hopefully it doesn't happen and you end up on the back end, pretty good in this position. But just look at that pipeline now. I mean, you guys have been locked down now without activity for what, 2.5, 3 weeks?
Well, most of Delaware and Maryland, we've been able to operate in some shape or form, albeit restricted, but we're still able to get basic showings and stuff done. Yeah.
So, that we don't know for sure where it's going to go. So we want to plan for it to be rather severe, and hopefully it's not for you. And I see Sherry's asked a question about, can we apply for these government programs even if money's coming in? The answer is yes. You can, because we're in the already pre-identified disaster zones. And so yes, you can apply for the programs, even if you do still have a couple deals. Unemployment, maybe not. Unemployment is a weird one because we've never been able to, as self-employed individuals, apply for unemployment. We don't really have good clarity on the state by state laws for that, but the PPP, you can.
So we've got obligations and we're trying to renegotiate them. How do we have that conversation, right? So I call it my Zillow rep and I'm like, hey dude, I owe you $2,000 a month and I want to reduce it for a period of time. Or let me just ask you, but if we're desperate for business, is that one of the things we should cut, or should we be focusing on that?
So here's the interesting thing. Like, at any given time as agents, we're trying to evaluate what's an expense and what's an investment, right? And it's not always clear. I wish it was. But I think that conversation needs to have an additional sense of urgency around it, and say, where are the pathways to my now business? I do think you want to look carefully at that, because if you are actually getting business from, say, Zillow or another source, and you can directly tie the expense to revenue, then I would say you don't, right? That would be a critical investment. But if you're scratching your head and you're like, I'm not really sure I'm getting an ROI on that, this isn't the time to be spending money on a I'm not really sure initiative, right? This is the time to be investing in sure sources, which, by the way, are probably your database anyway. Right? As you know, they're probably your key relationships anyway. But I would interrogate that reality very, very carefully to make sure that you're only spending money that you can see a direct correlation to relatively soon revenue.
So if we want to go after our database and our past clients, how do we do that while being sensitive that some of them could be out of work, some of them could be feeling frustrated in the moment, and it sounds like we're just in for a money grab.
Yep.
Right? How do we do that in the midst of all this?
So the way I'm thinking about it and the way I'm approaching it is now is not a particularly good time to be selling, but it's a great time to be branding. And what I mean by that is, calling up somebody in your database and being like, hey, now's an amazing time to buy because, fire sale, like sleazy, like that doesn't resonate with people. There's nothing there's no good path there to getting a great client. On the flip side, the branding exercise, which is not an overt sale, is just putting your name out there in the context of real estate expertise. So a really, really good thing to be doing right now is oversharing market statistics, because it does two things. One is it positions you as an expert in the field. It's informative, and anybody who's interested in or owns any real estate wants to know what's going on with the real estate market. You might even add some statistics about mortgages and what's going on with interest rates. And now you're doing a touch point, and it's coming from a professional space. And then you might even share some personal details about what you're doing right now in a time of crisis. So you haven't asked anybody for any business, but you've done the activity to put yourself in their stream online or in their phone, in their ear. And when they're ready to buy, or they know somebody who is, or to sell, you're going to be activated as the most recent person to have reached them. So it's some good fundamental volume marketing based activity where you're just front and center with good, valuable information. And you don't have to be asking for a sale at all. Those sales will come as a result of that good work.
Okay. All right. So what else are we doing with our money? So we're looking at contractual obligations. We're making sure that we're getting a return on the money we're spending. What else are we doing for money right now?
So I think this is also a really good opportunity for us to advance some of the organization of our finances. I've spoken with a lot of agents recently who, when trying to apply for some of these programs, realized they don't have a profit and loss statement. That their finances are running through their personal bank accounts. These programs are requiring you to have a 2019 tax return. How many people on the call have filed their 2019 tax returns, right? Not many. So I think this is, at a larger, longer term level, an opportunity for us to sort of clean up some of the financial practices that we know needed to be cleaned up, right? So, for example, when I got in the business the first 10 years, I didn't pay much attention at all to QuickBooks or profit and loss statements, or I just thought that I could just sell another house and I would take care of whatever needed to be taken care of. Finally, after getting into tax debt twice, I was like, wait a minute, maybe that doesn't work exactly as well as I thought it would. So after coming out of that and going through the 2008 crisis, feeling very vulnerable as a result, I made a commitment to myself in 2008 that in the next recession or the next crisis, I would be in a much better position. And so now, here in 2020, obviously an even more severe scenario than the 2008 crisis, I'm in a much better position. So I would love for this to be an opportunity for all of us agents to make a renewed commitment to some financial basics, bank account configurations, entity structures, profit and loss reports, and understand what they mean. Now is a really good time to dive into some of that stuff that a lot of us have been head in the sand about for a long time.
That's a lot of gibberish, profit and loss statements and entities and all that. So how do we, we're not gonna be able to do it on this call, but what does somebody do right now who's never operated that way, right? So I get my commission checks, I put it in my personal account, I write some bills out of there, and that's been the standard. Now you're talking profit and loss and
Yep.
entity QuickBooks. What's one or two or three things to take the first couple of steps?
So the very first thing to do if you're an agent and you're likely a sole proprietor where you've just been putting your commission checks in your personal bank accounts, the first thing to do is to talk to a really good business attorney. I'm sure there's going to be some recommendations on this call, and make a decision about the type of entity, the LLC, that you should formulate based on the broader picture of what you've got going on in your financial life, because that will inform the type of bank accounts you need to set up so that you can accomplish the first task, which is to no longer have personal money and business money in the same spot. That includes expenses. So, the deliverable, if you will, step one, is to no longer have personal income and expenses flowing in and out of the same account or credit card, to separate that stuff. But to do that requires a conversation with your attorney and your CPA about making an entity type selection, which isn't that hard actually. For most people, that's going to be a simple LLC filing as an S Corp, as an example. You set that up, doesn't take very long, and you set up the right bank accounts. That's the place where you begin. From there, you can do a bunch of other stuff, but until you have those things fundamentally decided and set up, it's difficult to even think about QuickBooks and reports and so on and so forth. So step one, talk to your attorney and CPA about the type of company you should set it up, and then correlate and correspond the bank accounts to that structure. That's where you begin.
Okay. Man, I'm already feeling overwhelmed because I'm making a whole list of all the things I have to do.
Yeah. Well, so think of it more simply. You say, okay, operationally, well, here, let me say it this way. I'm thinking about, like, there's the immediate stuff I need to do, and then there's like my initiative over the next 90 days. And the immediate stuff is around expense reduction and increasing as much cash as you can by applying to government programs, pulling in settlements, doing everything you can in your business so that you're well positioned from a cash standpoint to roll this out as long as possible. That's the near-term, short-term exercise. Meanwhile, you're doing good work in your database. You're talking to people, you're informing them about the market. You might set a goal for yourself to contact 20 people a day. You're staying in conversations, not particularly obsessed with the sale, just knowing that by doing that kind of good work, all will be well. Longer term, you say, what are the opportunities here? Like, how do I take this crisis and make some changes in my behavior and make some improvements in the business that I own? And that's this whole bigger bucket focus on the financial setup of your business. It is more complex. There's a lot more going on there. And that's also a long-term, let's call it a 60 to 120-day process that you probably want to have some sort of mentor along with you.
So let's shift gears for a minute and talk about some of the government loans, options, stimulus. What are you recommending to your agents now that they can apply for?
Yes.
What do you know? Share with us anything you know from the unemployment side to the government side. What are our takeaways from there that we could be doing?
So there's three. The first one is called the PPP program, or the Paycheck Protection Program. You've heard a lot about this in the news. It ran out of money last week, and Congress is about to replenish those funds maybe tomorrow. And that is designed to give you 2.5 times your monthly payroll, quote unquote. The problem many people ran into, small businesses particularly, and agents in particular, is unless you were your own employee, and some people are set up that way, then you had a hard time applying and probably didn't get any money in round one. Round two, though, there's a renewed focus on sole proprietors, independent contractors, freelancers, real estate agents who do not have these more formalized entity bank account structures. You're rolling money out of your personal, it's intermixed, etc. You can now apply for the PPP. How do you do it? The first course of action is to contact your bank where you have a banking relationship. Hopefully they can process your application. If not, there are some non-bank SBA approved lenders that are starting to pop up. And I can also, I've run across 2 in the last 24 hours. I will send that to you guys so that you can get it out to the team of non-bank lenders who are processing the applications. But what you need though, and this is what's really critical, you need your 2019 tax return. Because what they're looking at to determine your income, if you're a sole proprietor, an independent contractor, is your Schedule C of your 2019 tax return. So if you don't have one yet, then you better at least get a draft ready because you're going to need that documentation. If you do have an entity and you do file a separate business tax return, then they're going to be looking at the net income line on Form 1065. So the PPP program is designed to give you 2.5 months of your own payroll. That's huge. It is a forgivable loan, which means it's a loan that if you meet certain criteria, it's forgivable. And the way they're going to do that is you will have to apply with whoever gave you the money for that loan to be forgiven, and you must use the money in a very particular way. Now, for many of us, this will be the first time you receive a government grant or loan program. And you may be unfamiliar, I certainly have been, about the rules and compliance associated with receiving government money. The rules are heavy, and you should work with your CPA or read them carefully yourself to make sure that you use that money in the way you're supposed to. I'll give you a quick preview, but it's a long, detailed list. You have to use it all in 8 weeks. 75% can be used for payroll. 25% can be used for rent, utilities, and interest on business loans you had before February. But if you're working from your home office, you don't have any rent. So you might be able to use utilities if you do a home office deduction. So there's a lot of nuances in it, but the basics are you should apply for the PPP program, Paycheck Protection Program, and that's done through your local bank or through one of these non-bank SBA approved lending sources. So that's a big one. So post any questions you have about that, folks, and then so let me tell you about Program 2. It's called the Economic Injury Disaster Assistance Loan Program, EIDL for short, and it's administered directly through the Small Business Association. And you have to apply for it directly at the SBA website. That portal has been closed for the last week, but it should open again this week. Just Google SBA coronavirus assistance, and you'll get to the link.
It's crazy name, right? The coronavirus assistance.
Coronavirus SBA assistance. You can apply the link. Now that will give you up to $10,000 in emergency cash. I applied for it on the 31st of March, and I just got our money last night. So that it's taking at least 3 weeks or 4 weeks to process it. It's up to $10,000. It's $1,000, but it's not a full $10,000. It's $1,000 for every employee. And if you or an independent contractor or sole proprietor, then that would be $1,000 is what you would get.
Hey, $1,000 is $1,000, right?
$1,000 is $1,000. It took me 5 minutes to fill out this application, and it took 3 weeks, but I got the money.
Should they just Google the SBA site?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Google, I would to COVID-19 relief SBA as a Google search. The link keeps changing location. I don't know where they're going to put it tomorrow, but that'll take you to the Economic Injury Disaster Loan application. When you're all done, you're going to get something that looks like this, which is a little confirmation number that your application has been submitted. And this was a very easy application. This took me 5 minutes. The PPP one is more complex. Now, I see some questions like interest rates on the loans. Back to the PPP, if you don't use the PPP according to the rules, it becomes a loan. And the loan, I don't remember what the interest rate is on that, Matt. Maybe you do. 1.5% or 2%, I think.
On the PPP, it's 1%.
1%.
Over 2 years.
Yeah. So that's the answer to that is it becomes a loan for about 1%. So those are the two. There's one more. So there's the PPP, EIDL. The third is unemployment. As part of the CARES Act that was passed a few weeks ago, for the first time ever, I think, self-employed individuals can apply for unemployment. I believe that the problem has been the systems are not set up for self-employed individuals to apply for unemployment. So I've heard of almost no one, actually no one, succeeding in that yet. But from what I understand, Maryland is going to allow applicants to apply, self-employed applicants to apply by this Friday. I check whichever state you're in and see when and where they're going to process that. Now, here's the thing. You can't double dip, because in the fine print of the CARES Act, it says you can't use multiple loan grant sources. So if you get the PPP money, you can't also be getting unemployment. Now, you could sequence it so that you like get unemployment now until PPP comes in and then get unemployment later. But I'm sure that there will be post-haste investigations and compliance and people looking for double dipping. So I got that question yesterday. Can I apply for all of it? You can, but you got to be careful not to be receiving both unemployment and PP funds for the same consecutive period of time, or you could find yourself having to pay stuff back later. So those are the three programs. States are rolling out various programs, but they tend to be up and down within a day because they get overwhelmed. And I'm not aware of any open right now, but just keep an eye on, email chains from your local representatives and see what kind of programs get opened up.
Great. I'm just going to look at the chats real quick. There's a few things in there. If we get a commission check today, is $8,000, and the next check's not due till June, we could still apply for unemployment.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
Delaware system is not up and running yet for the self-employed.
Yeah.
SBA, do you know the interest rate? Yeah, but it's 1%. First Bank is a great book. Profit. Oh, thanks, Sherry. When we talk about this, Profit First is a great book on how to set yourself up for success financially. Even at the moment, you can still use the principles of Profit First. That's for sure.
Certainly could. So I think there are a couple things that I'm a little concerned about right now that I just want to alert people to. One is the rules to the PPP program about repayment are strict, and so I'm a little concerned people are going to get funds thinking that it's a freebie and not do the proper documentation and compliance work associated with it being a forgivable loan. So just file away for everybody.
Grant.
You want this to be a grant. You don't want to pay this sucker back. So know what the rules are, and you're going to have to document. So that's one thing on my mind. The second thing that's on my mind is the longer term, which is, gosh, this is an opportunity for us in a couple ways. One is it's an opportunity to share care, concern, and compassion for our database. That may not turn into a sale this week, but it's going to do great things for us this year. So we've got to be sort of in emergency triage mode in some ways, yes, and we have to be looking at the rest of the year and saying, how do I get into activity to both grow my business over time through reaching out to people? And then how do I take on a couple, let's call them institutional projects, where I'm going to really make an improvement in my business and invest in my personal and professional development. And I'm a big believer, now's the time to focus on your finances. Let's use this time opportunistically to not only create better sales for us this year, but also to create a better business for us this year. And I think really having the underlying financials, entity structures, QuickBooks accounts, et cetera, ready to go for us by summer is really going to serve us well. So I'm worried that we're going to get past this and people are going to look back on it and say, gosh, I missed my opportunity to make some big, important pivots in my business. Don't miss these opportunities. This is a really unique time.
Yeah. Okay. So we talked about how to stop spending some money. We talked about some of the grant money. What would you spend money on now? Like what would you spend some money on? I know we talked about it has to have a return on it, but if you had some money sitting in an account and you wanted to invest a little something in your business, what's something that you would tackle at the moment?
So I'll tell you exactly what we're doing, and we just had this meeting right before this call. So we went to the team and we said, okay, so we got a lot of people in the database, right? Like 4,000 or something. But of the 4,000, we've got 20% that are really good clients that have transacted with us and continue to do so. And of that 20%, we have another 20% that are like the gems, right? And that, that got down to a list of like 50 or 60 people. So we went on to Firehook Bakery, which is a local bakery in the DC area, and you can deliver cinnamon rolls for like 20 bucks. So for our most important clients, we're talking like, I think 40 or 50 of them, we're sending them cinnamon rolls next week with just a note of gracious thanks. It's going to cost us in a few $100s. But these are the people that do a lot of business with us. So I'm like, you know what? That's money worth spending today. I want to do that because and it's random. It's not a holiday. It's not in our normal sequence of touches. It's just out of the blue, you're going to get cinnamon rolls from our team. Isn't that nice? Right? To the next group of people, we said, how can we touch them in a meaningful way? We're not going to send cinnamon rolls to hundreds of people. That next group of people has a few hundred in it. Well, we decided that we're going to send them a more personal email, record a video from the team on Zoom, thanking them for their business, their loyalty, letting them know that we're thinking about them and caring about them, and send them some market stats.
Yeah.
So that's the second thing for the larger group. The big group of thousands of people, they're on our email newsletter. And we're being very thoughtful about what that content looks like. So that's what we organized just today, is like, what are we going to do in the next week? And how do we just stay present with that?
Yeah, I think it's really important that we stay in soft communication with our clients and sphere, right? How are you doing? Do you need anything? Thanks for your past business. We so appreciate it. And we're here when you need us, right? So I think those are all valuable things to communicate. We need to communicate those, over time. I'm absolutely agreeing that gifts are kind of important. We're going to do a pizza for first responders on Saturday night this week. On Saturday evening, we're going to buy all fire, EMS, and police officers, including those not on duty, that want to come and pick one up. We're launching it. I think we're hoping it's going to be 200 pizzas, but you can't beat it for $7. It's money well spent, and canceling Zillow for the month and spending it there is going to be huge.
Yeah, and think about the added touches you're getting from that, or the cinnamon rolls. We calculated, it's a text message to confirm their physical address of where they're at right now, right? Touch 1. 2 is the delivery of the cinnamon roll, and 3 is a follow-up thank you. Like we're going to execute 3 important touches to important people in the next 2 weeks. Not to mention, it keeps us busy. And it sort of keeps us active and engaged and optimistic about things when the atmosphere can feel a little heavy. Everybody loves cinnamon rolls, right? As a matter of fact, I was like, I hope one of the team members sends me a box of those cinnamon because they look pretty good. So yeah, I think anything like that, or the delivery to the pizzas, like, now's our time. For very little resources, we can make a real difference by demonstrating I care through small gifts right now.
Yeah. Okay. Well, what haven't we covered? What do we need to cover?
So I'm going to put in a couple resources here. One is, somebody posted, what are the rules for forgiveness? Are they on their app? Where can you find them? I just posted a link to my CPA's blog that has all the rules. So there you go. Could you apply for both loans? The answer is yes. And frankly, I would apply for everything you can get your hands on right now, because it's taking a variety of time to get through the system. Would we be better off focusing more on current database or building the pipeline, or both? Well, I think we're talking about that in a crisis, I think it's really better, instead of going wide, to go deep. So if you have a tendency to just build out wide because that's your approach to things, shift it and go deep, and do what we did today, which is take your large mailing list and say, yeah, 20% of these people are the most important. And of those 20% are the most important. It took us an hour, and we came up with an excellent touch plan for 2 weeks. Now, nothing we just did was remarkably new, but we did it in a new context of the current environment. So our message, our timing is going to be on. And I think that's an important component to these reach outs.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, so I wanted to just check and see on any chats. Tommy, just yes, you can apply for both loans for sure. You can. And would we be better off focusing more on our current database for billing? You randomly covered that. Here, I'm just reading them. And I don't see anything else different in there. So there's this massive storm moving through my area, and the wind and rain is driving. I don't know if you hear it in the background on the windows. I can hardly hear anything. Bridget, what else do you want to make sure that we cover?
So let's kind of zoom ahead as maybe a final topic and start to look a little bit ahead and say, if stage one now is about these emergency operations for liquidity, it's about identifying projects you want to work on in your business more long term. It's about reaching out to your database. What do you do next, right? So, I mean, clearly nobody knows for sure how this is going to play out, but there are a few things that we're pretty certain of. First is that as the dust begins to settle and people understand this is the new way of operating for the foreseeable future, it'll be time for us to assess what those pivots need to look like in our business. So we're already looking at some of the things that we've been forced to move virtual and asking ourselves, what's going to stay virtual and what do we want to bring back? Like, I don't know about you guys, but we've been pretty happy with the virtual settlement situation. That the virtual open house has been kind of opportunistic. Like, there's been some stuff we've done on a rush pivot that I think are going to stick. So, this next stage is about pivoting in your business, and what are you going to do around that? And how are you going to sort of reassess your goals and aspirations and operations in the business? That's coming soon. And I don't think it's too far along here where we're going to move through this acceptance phase, move through this emergency phase and say, look, folks, this is the new normal for the next 24 months. Let's say it is, right? We're not going back to where we were before. So how do you as an entrepreneur make some permanent adaptations to your marketing messages, some permanent adaptations to how you execute your business and mix virtual versus digital? Maybe you even start to, as a group, just imagine what the business is going to look like come fall. So, I think as we start to put some of that positive energy forward a little bit and see to the extent that we can how things are going to play out, we're going to feel more uplifted in the current state, which can feel a little bit constricted because we're so stuck, right? So that will end and we're going to be a little bit better. So start to maybe imagine now, what are the changes you want to put in your life? And the final thing I'll say in that is, the question I keep asking myself and informing myself is, what do I want my life and my business to look like 12 months from now? And how do I align my actions today and in the coming months so that I can get to where I see my life and my business 12 months from now, all the while giving myself plenty of permission to allow those things to change as the world plays out. Hope you're on mute there, sir.
Sorry, it's easy to get into a funk and a rut at the moment because now we're like in the beginning it was kind of novel, and now it's becoming same old, and people are kind of holding up in their basement and holding up in and they've kind of gotten really casual. And it's not that we're just at home working. Nobody chose to work from home, so all of a sudden it's all these pieces have to come together.
Yeah, we're all a little tired of it, right? It was So we got to manage that, and we've got to manage our energy well. I know for me, this has actually created more work. I've actually worked a lot more hours because it seems easier to meet with more people digitally than physically, and I've had to actually pull myself back a little bit and be like, I need to work a little less. I need to go walk. I need to, So I think we've got to self-regulate a little bit of that with both enthusiasm for where this is going in terms of our opportunities as great professionals in the community, but also the sort of the short term. How do we stop and smell the roses a little bit?
Yeah. All right, Bridget, what do you want to make sure we don't miss?
So Brandon, question for you, because this has come up in different conversations, and I'm curious because I don't see necessarily a lot of posts from KW agents over, on the other side of the bridge as far as from a social media post. And I think there's been directives and guidance from primarily the Delaware Association of Realtors, where they have somewhat put guidelines out there about, be responsible about what you're posting on social media. It's fine to put a post up about a new listing, yet if you put something under contract or if you settle it, be really sensitive and conscientious about it. And I've had agents, asking like, is this okay? Is that not okay? Should I be doing this? I'm curious what you're seeing in your market per se. Is that clear?
Yeah. I think, Bridget, you might be getting at a little bit to this idea that the tone matters, right? And you don't want to be tone deaf. So as entrepreneurs, we are often orienting ourselves to find the opportunity in just about anything like that. We're kind of a scrappy bunch like that. And that's what makes us good entrepreneurs. At the same time, we have to modulate some of that enthusiasm and be compassionate for the enormous pain and suffering that's occurring right now, both on the healthcare side and the economic side. And so, yes, I think we need to be thoughtful about how we're celebrating and who we're celebrating and how we're executing that. So, if you're finding yourself unsure about your judgment, run it by a couple people and see if it seems like an appropriate post or a message to be sending out right now. And by the way, check your auto email marketing messages. I've gotten a couple emails recently where I'm like, I know they developed that campaign in January and they just haven't turned it off, right? So every message you're sending out as a business owner now needs to have been adapted to the current times. Whitewash messages from January are no longer applicable.
Good, thank you. Yeah, and I've seen that too. And I've had some folks recently ask me about sending out a postcard. And I can't remember the last time I received a postcard in the mail from an agent. And I used to probably receive them on a daily basis. And one of the things that I shared was, if you were going to send out a postcard, and we talked about it at our ALC kind of morning call, was celebrate the event, celebrate the people, maybe try to take it off of yourself in terms of celebrating you, and also maybe do half the card with an awareness and hope you're safe and happy and something relative to like this time. So you could kind of do a divided card, if you will, and have two different messages on there. So you are, like you said, being sensitive about it.
Yeah, I mean, in marketing, there's the message and then there's the method. Our methods haven't really changed much really in the last few weeks, but the messages better have changed a lot, right? So, yes, every piece we put out as a business owner or post or physical mailing, we need to modulate that message to be relevant today, which, by the way, is just good marketing. Like, whether you're in a crisis or you're not in a crisis, like the understanding of what the message of the moment should be is a critical component to reaching a customer in an authentic and compassionate way. And this has just elevated that right now.
Okay, so this is really more about a question more for Bridget than it probably is for most anybody else. So I'm going to take this moment and ask you, because I'm just curious if you all have done this. Have you been recognizing agents from, say, last month's production, things of that nature, from an award standpoint, recognition, or are you holding off for the moment and doing stuff like that?
We have held off on that. We have not been doing production celebrations for the last few weeks. Yeah. We have, however, been doing highlights of really interesting and good work in the community. People that are doing interesting things that are really making a difference. We're really trying to highlight, both to highlight good work and also to help generate other ideas that other people can have. Look, as agents, we're some of the most connected people in our community. We know when everything moves, right? And so how do we take that incredible on-the-ground knowledge and come up with ways to give back to the community? There's a lot of that going on right now, and I think the more we can elevate that, it helps all of us come up with some more of these ideas.
Yeah. We had meeting, committee meeting this morning, our culture committee, just in terms of talking about Red Day and what we would still like to be able to do our original plan, Red Day. However, it's likely not going to happen on May 14th. However, what can we do on May 14th? So we are going to be presenting that over the next couple of days to all of our folks. Are you all sort of pivoting as far as what you're doing for Red Day as well?
Yes, we are. We're having quite a few meetings on that going, what are we going to do? We haven't landed on that yet, but that is certainly something that we're looking at. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I'm seeing, I don't know if you can comment on this. I just saw a comment from something about, what was your comment, Megan? Oh, when you have kids.
Sorry, I was muted.
Yeah.
I was just, hi, by the way.
Hello.
I was just wondering about any other parents out there that are in a completely different struggle bus. You had said you're working more than ever, Do you have kids? Because
I do not. Yeah. Yeah.
Because I'm literally like, I'm running my team, you know, I'm a team of 7, I'm the Rainmaker, and, you know, we are, you know, we're struggling. All of us have kids except for, you know, a couple, 1 or 2, and we're all like, okay, so how do we work it so that we can time block for these important tasks and not get interrupted? And, you know, I'm just curious if there's any sort of good type of advice you can offer for that. My coach I spoke with this week, she was trying to help me determine a time block during the day that I could keep for myself and escape. So literally, I think today I started going out to the parking lot, literally just to like park and be alone for like an hour and a half. So, oh, my video wasn't on. Sorry.
Oh, there you are. There you are. Oh, you're at the beach. I love it. Looks lovely.
This is Fort Lauderdale, where I wish I was right now. So.
You know what I would say to that? First, let me give you a resource. There's a woman named Marla Shea, SHEA, who has a Facebook group called The Power of 3. And this is particularly for parents who have kids with special needs and have some additional challenges. And she was a team leader in our office. I know her well. She's really developed a lovely little group there called The Power of 3 by Marla Shea. So just as a sidebar, because I saw your comment here. I think the other thing is just, like, we've got to be thoughtful about how we define a win. And a win absolutely is just having a good day, right? How many people you reached out to, you know, whether you delivered X homework or Y project, does it really matter? I mean, I think some of what we've discovered as a result of COVID-19 is what really matters, right? And so for me, we don't have any kids, but what really matters, of course, is my family. And so we've been really taking this time to be engaged as a couple and with my parents and doing Zoom calls. That's a win. Like I'm excited about business and entrepreneurism, and I get like, you know, my hands get going. But at the end of the day, the reason I'm doing it is because all the other stuff that's actually much more important to me. So I think we've got to modulate, you know, some of our ambition and say, hey, I don't want this opportunity to pass me by. I just want to enjoy it. My father was a superintendent of schools, and I've got a bunch of cousins in education. And they said, look, as a parent, if it's a win that they get out of this crisis with a good relationship with their children, that's all that matters. And I thought that was a really wise thing for an educator to say. And so, you know, I might leave you with that and say, what's a win? A win is the relationship with your kids. Nothing else really matters ultimately, right? So, you know, that might be a way to think about it.
Super
May
helpful.
I chime in?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
May I chime in?
Sure.
Am I on?
You are.
Because I actually have 3 children, ages 4, 8, and 11. So it is a lot to try to give them some structure to their day, build a relationship with them, and run a business. And I found myself a few days ago, one morning, I felt so overwhelmed. And then I went into my room and my husband said, what are you stressed about? And then he said, does it really matter? Does it really matter? Like, he had to kind of talk me down. And it's just focusing on, every day looks different, and that's okay. Some days I try to start them with some schoolwork at 9:30. I really do try to do that every day. 9:30, give them some math pages or something. But by 11, we're usually like, that's it. That's about all the homework we get done in a day. It's 9:30 to 11, and that's about it. And sometimes I'm sitting in my office sending emails during that time, and sometimes I'm sitting there with them doing the homework. So it just depends, and I have to adjust how much I'm doing with reaching out to people. So I try to send a card or an email a day, but it's not like 10 people a day. I just can't. It's too much.
Well,
But I have to manage the homes I have under contract for the good leads. That's all.
yeah, in a year from now, you're not going to be like, yeah, but man, I got my 10 a day. You're not going to, who cares? You are going to remember, though, the relationship with your kids, right? So, yeah, I think this is an opportunity for all of us to have a reset of what's important and what our perspective is. And I've certainly felt a lot of gratitude, just an enormous amount of gratitude as I sort of like, I deal with my problems as they are. And then I watch the news and I'm like, oh my goodness, like I don't have any problems at all. Like, so it's been a real great opportunity to not take myself so seriously, to sort of set my goals, but if I don't get them, don't beat myself up at the same time. Like, be in activity, but don't be obsessive about it. Go on a walk during the middle of the day, which I never would do before. So I am really committed to a different level of personal self-care in my life as we move into this, whatever we're in. And I think that's a really good thing. So I appreciate you ladies bringing this up. And that's an important thing for us to give ourselves as ambitious entrepreneurs who like to accomplish everything on our to-do list. This is a really good opportunity to take the to-do list, toss it aside, and say, what's really important today? And let me just be present with that.
And I'll just add one thing. My favorite experience in this is getting to spend more time in the kitchen and outside with my kids, which I try to do in the afternoon.
I made cheesecake this last weekend. I have never made cheesecake. And then I lived by Rock Creek Park in Washington, D.C., literally a block from the park. Prior to this lockdown, I had never gone on any of those amazing trails. Every 3 days, I'm walking on these amazing trails. And I've been here for 5 years in this house and haven't been on a single trail until now. I'm really thrilled with it, quite frankly. So yeah, and my cheesecake was pretty good, I will say.
I was just going to add to the moms on the line. I have 3 grown children. They all have kids. And I'm friends with a lot of their friends who are also raising kids during all of this. And I can say, I wish I had this stopping period in my life raising children. Because I was on the go the entire time raising my kids. I was an entrepreneur since the time I was 22 years old. And I moved to Ocean City to try to quiet that down a little bit, but it didn't work. I jumped right back in Ocean City. But just enjoy the time that you have, because you probably won't get it again.
This is precious.
And I'm watching the kids I watched a dance party between 3 little kids. And I said to them, Mom, they are going to remember this forever. And they're going to talk to their kids about it. And you know what? Their parenting might be different because you're having the time to set the example and making the time, because that's all we really have at this point is time. We don't have time block. We don't have time obligations outside of the house. So just enjoy your kids. Don't pressure on yourself to perform at this point. The teachers will catch them up.
Yeah.
They're all going to deal with it when they get back in school. But for this time, just enjoy it. Don't worry about it. Do what you can do and just shake off the rest.
Yeah, I love that. And enjoy your spouse too. I mean, we've had dinner together every night for almost a month. That's never happened. It's actually been really insightful. And we love it. We're like, we've gone through a bunch of shows. And I actually, last night we were talking, we were like, it's going to be kind of sad when we're back to the normal routine, because we're really enjoying like being home every night and having dinner at 5:30, 6 o'clock. Who does that? And watching shows until 11. And yeah, so you're right. There's a lot of joy and uniqueness of this time. And I think when we come out of this, we will look back on this time with some nostalgia and be like, yeah, remember the lockdown, how cool that was? Like, I think that will happen. And so let's enjoy it while we're in it.
Yeah, and I
Say hi to Johanna.
I walk with my dogs.
Hi.
I was just getting ready to say, I actually carve out some time to talk to my clients when I'm walking my dogs.
Yeah.
I tell them what I'm doing, and it just humanizes everybody that we're actually walking outside and taking the time, and the conversation gets pretty, candid from that point. Just letting them know that I'm doing an everyday task that they probably do too. So, just a thought.
Yep. Agreed.
Thank you. That was really good. And it sounds like you enjoyed some of it too, Brandon.
Yeah, no, this is great. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate it. I really appreciate your time and just spending with us. We really always appreciate having you part of our market center in any way, shape, or form. So I really appreciate it. And if we can ever return that favor to you in the DC area, please let us know. Whatever we can do, we're happy to help in that regard.
I'll put just my contact info in the chat here. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, etc. Brandon A. Green is the Instagram contact, and then I'll put my phone. If anybody has any questions about any of this stuff, any of these programs, any of that sort of stuff, just reach out to me. I think that while this has certainly been the end of a lot of things in terms of how we were imagining 2020, this is also the beginning. And it's an opportunity for all of us to ask ourselves and our families and our lives, what is this the beginning of? And begin to construct that. It's a clean slate for all of us. It maybe never happens again like this. So how do we really begin to craft that new beginning for our lives, for our careers, for our businesses, and build some excitement and enthusiasm around that idea?
Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome.
Are we going to see a cameo from you on Thursday for the mastermind? Are you leading the whole thing?
No, I'm not.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Well, thank you again, and thank you, everyone. I appreciate everybody's participation, and just so everyone is aware, if for some of the Maryland folks that are on the call, what Scarlett Stout has created, we now have a YouTube channel for our market centers for Keller Williams, Delaware, and Maryland. And what we are doing now is when we have sessions from guest speakers and trainings, our classes, we're putting those recordings onto that YouTube channel. So if you wanted to go back and listen to it again, there was really great information that Brandon was sharing. And if you missed some of it, you could go back and watch it again and pick up some of those. There were a lot of acronyms. We thought we had a lot of acronyms, and there's a lot of acronyms coming out right now as far as all these stimulus plans and so forth. So we've been now putting our recordings on there, and feel free to go to that. KWDEMD is our YouTube channel. And you'll find a lot of our past recordings over the last month that we have been saving, and we put onto that YouTube channel. So just as an FYI.
I love that. And I just posted a link to a YouTube interview I did yesterday with a CPA on all these programs too. It's about 30 minutes. Right. So that's another good resource. I've got a library of some interviews I just uploaded there in the last week, and I think I have 9 subscribers. So I would love to have 10, maybe 11. So please feel free to use any of that as some resources for you.
Awesome. Oh, it looks like they just put the YouTube channel for our YouTube, the URL in there too, because I couldn't remember what it was, but there it is. So now everybody has it. Awesome.
Great.
Perfect. Thanks.
Right.
Thanks, Brandon.
Parting words, Matt?
No. See you later.
Man, a few words. All right.